Coming up, we're going to talk to you about why you need to be going to Aulani out in Hawaii on this week's episode of the DVC Show. The DVC Show is brought to you by DVCstore.com. You'll save thousands of dollars on your next DVC contract when you let the experts at the DVC Store help welcome you home. Visit them on the web at www.dvcstore.com or call them at 1-800-550-6493. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends Jackie Gailey.
Hi, everyone.
From the DVC Store, Mr. Jerry Saito.
Aloha.
Joining us via Skype, Mr. Pete Shidley.
I was going to do that. Hey, everybody.
And back in the production nook, associate producer Corey Fiascanaro.
Welcome home.
So I'm excited to do this show. I'm excited anytime I have an opportunity to talk about Aulani. And I didn't realize this until right before we started recording, that I'm the only one in the room that's ever been there.
Stayed there.
If you haven't, being outside when it's outside of it, when it's under construction, doesn't count. We've had this discussion.
All right.
It doesn't count. You have not been to Aulani until you've experienced Aulani. And this is a common thread that I see with DVC members that, oh yeah, we want to get out there, but it's so far. Let's be honest, there's a high concentration of DVC members on the East Coast of the United States. It is a long trip. It is a 10-hour flight from the East Coast to the U.S. Out to Honolulu, so it is a very long flight. It can be an expensive flight as well. But this is one of the best hotels I've ever stayed at. And I'm being dead serious.
Wow.
And I've been out there now, not as a DVC member. I've been out there this year. We are planning a trip for February right now to go out and use points. We want to do the Grand Villa.
Nice.
But I've gone out there and stayed both in the hotel rooms and in the DVC rooms for cash. As a matter of fact, my last visit out there, which was last November, we stayed in a one-bedroom. And I think that may be where the wheels started to turn a little bit about maybe I should be considering DVC. And then we started working together and talking and doing these shows. And excuse me. Sean, who's not here for this round of shows because he's off doing something else today, just bought, that's his home resort out in Aulani. And I think right now in particular, it is such a perfect time to go. You've got a lot of folks that are just, we've talked about this in the Tuesday show, a lot of folks that are kind of burnt out on world.
Yeah.
Crowds, price. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Hawaii is inexpensive. It's not. But if you haven't done this, if you've done the Disney World thing a million times, Aulani is something you really, really should be thinking about. When they built this resort, they built it thinking that people would spend 2 or 3 days at the hotel and then would do the rest, doing things around the island of Oahu, which is where it's located. And they were wrong. They were wrong to the point where they had to build another pool. They had to build a quick service location. They had to add all this stuff to the resort because people weren't leaving. The other point I want to make sure I make here is that you are not going to a Disney-fied Hawaii experience at Aulani. They took this, Joe Rohde, the man responsible for Animal Kingdom, among other things, took it so seriously. Because when they announced that Disney was going to do this, the locals flipped out. They're like, we don't want our culture being, we've already had enough cultural appropriation here, and you want to see a gross characterization of Hawaiian culture, go to the Hilton Hawaiian Village. Stayed there for a night last year, and oh my God, it was awful. It was so tacky, just plain tacky.
What a shame.
Down to the light fixtures. I'm not exaggerating here. The light fixtures were designed to carry through this whole concept of authenticity, of the culture, the real culture. So much so that when it finally opened, the locals were like, this is the most authentic Hawaiian thing I've ever seen.
We have a lot of Hawaiian residents who will purchase Aulani just to stay at Aulani, just to enjoy that family time with, and they're there. They just want a few days at the resort.
See,
Do
that's
a staycation.
Yeah.
So I wanna poll the room. We'll start with you, Pete. Why haven't you been to Aulani yet? I'm gonna shame you a little bit. I'm gonna do some Aulani shaming, but just a little.
No, I really do want to go there, but it's completely what you said. It's a distance to go, and you really have to make that commitment of money and time. I mean, you say 10 hours, but for me, from Buffalo, there's no direct flight, so it's more like 14 hours to get there. And, but I definitely want to. It's everything I've heard about it is, beautiful. So, and looking at, the availability of it, also, it's not, unless you're going really prime season, which prime is probably like June, end of May through the beginning of July, it's not that hard to get in at 7 months. So you can get a room with your points. Not again, unless you want to go in June, you can get a room with your points. And Hawaii is beautiful year round, so it's not like you have to go in June for good weather. But yeah, as I said, it's one of those things we want to do, but we just haven't found the money/time to do it.
Well, I want to say this too. Because they don't have theme parks to leverage, they made sure that the experience, the pools are unbelievable. The lazy river that runs around the courtyard of the property is phenomenal. The spa, arguably the best I've ever seen.
Wow.
Absolutely stunning. The activities for members in particular, the community hall, they do ukulele lessons. You can make your own ukulele.
Oh wow.
They have a snorkeling reef, a small coral snorkeling reef loaded with fish. You can go in and you can snorkel. We have there are videos. We'll make sure, Fiasco, to put links to. We did an overview video of Aulani for the marathon show last year. That I had the best time filming and putting together. That's when we got to use the drone for the first time. We got in trouble.
Oh jeez.
Well, because I'm telling Steve, because Steve was operating the drone, and I'm like, keep going. And we're kind of low and going like from the ocean and then going in and got this great, but then like security showed up and said, please stop doing that. Like, okay. There is so much to do. It's so relaxing. The sunsets are gorgeous. There's a private beach there. The food is hit or miss. I'm going to be honest. The quick service is excellent. The dinner buffet was very good. The breakfast buffet wasn't. And the food at, I think it's Ama Ama, was the name of it. The signature restaurant was very disappointing. But we ended up, there's a grocery store across the street. We ended up going over, buying groceries, cooking in the room. Of course, Sean, bless his heart, set off the smoke alarm. That's a funny thing to watch happen when the smoke alarm goes off at Aulani.
Oh boy.
But, all right, so Jackie, why haven't you been?
my answer is kind of difficult because mostly financial reasons, but my family is all in Seattle. And so I feel like if I flew over that way and didn't stop in Seattle, it doesn't matter how old you are, your mom can still get pretty mad.
Well, you don't tell them.
I know, right?
You learn how to go under the radar.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a really expensive haul, and that's
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be, yeah. But we're going to talk about ways to get around that in a second.
Cool.
Jerry, you do this for a living, man. What's your excuse?
There is absolutely zero excuse, except that I have a 5-year-old. So I've been waiting for him to get to the right age where he can really appreciate it. But I got to be honest, like I've been to Hawaii 6 times in the first 10 years that me and my wife were married. I went to Maui, went to Oahu, went to Kauai. I love Hawaii. When I get to Hawaii, every piece of stress I've ever felt just goes away.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing. Like it's
Wow.
beautiful. The culture's amazing. Everything, the water, the food. I mean, I just love it. So 100% I'm going back, but I'm just waiting maybe a year, give or take, but I'm definitely going.
Have you done Disney Cruise Line?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep.
Jackie, you've done Disney Cruise Line?
I have.
Pete, have you done Disney Cruise Line?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Fiasco, you've done cruise, right?
No.
You haven't done Disney Cruise Line.
I always
All
like
right.
to say.
But the ones who've done Cruise Line, you like it?
Love it.
Took my breath away when I saw.
Right?
Yeah, very nice.
Cruise
Yeah.
Line's great. Well, guess what? Aulani. I've often said, we said it again last November, it's like Disney Cruise Line on land. They have the excursions desk there for things to do around the island. It has the whole feel like you're on a cruise. The way it's run, it's under the cruise line portfolio. Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, Aulani, and Disney Vacation Club are all under the same portfolio, all under the same management.
Oh, wow.
And it just so happens my 4 favorite Disney things, Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, DVC, and Aulani, all under the same umbrella. There's a reason for that. There's a reason because of how well it's run. The prices for when you do the hotel room side can get it very expensive. But when you look at the points, a week in adventure season, which runs from January 5th to February 22nd, which especially for people from the Northeast, right? That's the time you want to get out of Dodge because you're under an avalanche, right? It's cold.
Yeah.
It's not cold there. A week in a studio, 119 points for a standard view. 119 points for a week in Hawaii.
Yeah, and you ain't doing that in Hawaii any other way.
Yeah.
For that, when you think about what your points cost you, I mean, you're not going anywhere nice in Hawaii under $300-400 a night.
And it's important
Exactly.
when you say nice. It's important to mention that Aulani is located in the Ko'olina section of Oahu. This is where the JW Marriott, the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons. There's a golf resort there. It's like all these like multi-million-dollar condos along a golf course there. This is a very exclusive area.
From what I was told, they built the resort where the kings and queens of the ancient or the earlier times. That's where they lived, is in Ko'olina. So they obviously things have changed, but that's the wealthy
Like
part of the island.
pristine.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So it is definitely a luxury vacation. And so I understand that the airfare can be daunting, and this is what we've suggested to people, because this is what I've done. First of all, if that flight is too long for you, fly to Los Angeles. Go spend a couple days at Disneyland. Okay? The flight from LA to Honolulu is about 5 hours. So it's a 5-hour trip from the East Coast to LA, 5-hour trip out to Honolulu. What I do is I will usually book a round trip on Delta, because that's usually who I fly, to Los Angeles, even if I'm not going to stay at Disneyland. I'll do a round trip to Los Angeles. Then I'll book another round trip on Hawaiian Airlines.
Oh yeah.
That from Los Angeles, they run such incredible deals. I have yet to find a direct flight from here. Well, I usually have to go through Atlanta, but let's say from here to Honolulu, round trip on Delta, that was cheaper than me doing it that way. It's a little bit more involved because you're going to have to change planes and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you what, the amount of money I've saved doing that. Check Hawaiian Airlines. And especially, if, I'm getting a little more savvy with my use of miles that I get from my credit cards, especially American Express. Hawaiian Airlines is a partner with American Express. You can move miles from American Express into Hawaiian Airlines. Also, they are a code share partner with JetBlue. So if you fly a lot of JetBlue, if you have JetBlue miles or the JetBlue credit card, those miles transfer over to Hawaiian. And that's also a great way to at least pay for some of the flights. But do not. One of the websites I use for checking flights, kayak.com.
Oh yeah.
I love Kayak because you can put in your dates, what class of service you want, how many people are traveling, and it searches all the major airlines, and will show you, including what they call hacker fares, which is where they do one leg of it on one airline and another leg of it on another airline if it's cheaper. So it's a great way, real quick, to see what your prices are. So we were looking, I wish Sean was here because I can't remember. Some of his friends are going to join us out there coming from New York. And I want to say he was finding round trip from, I think it was Philly. Round trip from Philly was about $800 in coach.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow.
Out to Honolulu. So the prices are, you got to look, you got to search. But you want to talk about having a Disney experience. It's kind of unnerving the first time because you're having this Disney experience, but you're not in like a theme park. You don't have theme parks and stuff like that around. The island of Oahu is gorgeous. You're, not too far from Waikiki, which, if you want to go shopping, I guess, I don't find anything appealing about Waikiki whatsoever.
My husband was in Oahu and when he was back in the Army days, and he was there for 18 months, and he didn't really see the island. But what he did see of it, he didn't love, but he wasn't where Aulani is.
Well, because a lot of people go to Waikiki, and it's a
Yeah.
concrete jungle.
Yeah.
But if you go up to the North Shore, it's a much different experience. That's very, it's old Hawaii.
Yep.
It's not overdeveloped. It's not, and lots of little places to shop, lots of little places to eat. I do that every trip. Rent a convertible and drive the perimeter of the island. Go up to the North Shore. Go out to Turtle Bay, the Turtle Bay Resort. If you ever watched the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall, that's where that was filmed. Go out to the Dole Plantation. That's kitschy, but a lot of fun. There's a lot of things to do on the island, but there's also an awful lot to do at Aulani. So there really are. Oh, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You break anything?
No.
Bless you.
Bless you. That was a sneeze. I thought he crapped himself.
I thought something fell.
But yeah, like crap.
Yeah.
But look at those point charts. You really can't argue.
Question for you: in the January through May timeframe is usually when the humpback whales go through and migrate in Hawaii. So can you see the humpbacks from the Aulani Resort? I know in Maui they're right there, so I don't know if they're.
I've not heard that.
Okay.
I know that there are sometimes, depending on the time of year, there are sometimes excursions to go out and see the whales.
Okay.
But Sean and Steve did a helicopter tour around the island.
Oh, nice.
That they weren't getting me on it, but
I did it in Maui or in Kauai, and I had to take a Valium. I was like, I'm gonna die, but I made it. I'm here today.
so I just want to encourage people, and we should do a Q&A on Aulani for a future show.
Oh yeah.
So if you have questions about Aulani you want us to answer, podcast@disunplug.com. Just put Aulani questions in the subject line so we can spot them easily. And then in one of our upcoming shows, we'll do a Q&A on
That'll be
Aulani.
fun.
But if you've been to Aulani, also, I want to hear what you love about it and why you think other people should go. Or if you think people shouldn't, if you thought it was overrated, which I can't imagine, but, maybe there's a couple you hit your head and didn't like it.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been, I want to know, what's keeping you? Is it the airfare? Is it the distance? Is it, especially if you're on the West Coast?
Oh, yeah.
I would like to mention one thing. Aulani was on my radar before I moved here a year ago, but it was like lower down the list. Like I wanted to hit some of the foreign parks first in my mind, as far as like where my vacationing budget was going. But let's say I was still living back in Massachusetts right now, and I was still coming to Walt Disney World as a vacation. Of course, I live here now, so I can look forward to planning different sorts of vacations since I live here. But it would be a perfect time right now, as a big of an Epcot fan as I am. If I was looking to plan vacations this year, I'd be looking at Walt Disney World being like, Epcot's kind of like they're tearing it apart right now. Maybe I should try something different. And I think I might be considering Aulani this year because of that.
I almost forgot. There's one more thing I want to mention is the resale contracts for Aulani. Phenomenal value.
We've yet to have a buyback for Aulani.
Because it's still actively being sold.
Right.
And Disney historically does not buy back contracts on right of first refusal if the resort is still actively being sold.
Correct.
But what are we talking about price-wise?
Again, 95 to 105 is kind of the range. I mean, you can probably sneak one in a little lower if the seller's motivated, but the range tends to be 95 per point to 105 per point. Still, good deal.
Some pretty cheap points.
Yeah. Disney's price 188. I mean, I think they have incentives, but still, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are doing some incentives right now. That's why Sean bought on the cruise. So yeah, we want to hear from you about Aulani, your experiences, thoughts, reasons you haven't gone, reasons you have gone, what you thought if you went. Podcast at disunplugged.com. And that will do it for this week's episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great week, folks.